So I love eating mushrooms, and I don't know about you, but I get kind of bored when you go to the grocery store and all they have is bellas and white button. If you're lucky, maybe they have shiitake, or they'll have one of those blends that is mostly mushrooms you've heard of with a few other things thrown in there. If you're trying to find more mushrooms and you're trying to explore, and you don't know where to go, you might try going to some specialty grocery stores, some really fancy ones. Like we have a lot of Wegmans around here, and they're great, but mushrooms are seasonal. So certain seasons you have mushrooms, certain seasons you don't, and then it just depends what they have in stock, because there's not a lot of people buying mushrooms that are really into them. So sometimes they're a little tricky to find. Farmers markets are sometimes a good place. So if you're going to one of those, you might have some pretty good luck. The best option is one of two. It's either foraging, which is pretty cool, and I'm going to go into that later on. But that can get kind of complicated. It's very hit or miss. One thing that usually is a guarantee is some of these homegrown kits. That's what I'm going to show you guys today a little bit. There's a lot of them out there. You sort of have to be aware, because a lot of mushrooms you're not going to have luck with at home. Some are very, very challenging to grow if you can cultivate them at all. And some of them, like oysters, which is what I'm going to show you most of, are very easy. One that I didn't show you, or I'm not going to show you here, is wine saps. They're also fairly easy. I haven't grown those. I've heard morels are pretty tricky, but they're delicious. I've attempted that. I have some other methods that I use besides these grown kits, by just throwing some spawn in the ground around particular trees that they're associated with, but they haven't sprung up yet. So we'll see what happens there. But let me just show you some of these mushroom kits real quick. So my wife got me this growing kit, or actually several growing kits for mushrooms. This is shiitake. We've already harvested quite a few off of that. Some various oyster mushrooms here. They grow very quickly. And then I've got, this one's a newer one that's just started. This is lion's mane. And, these work pretty quickly. If you don't know about how mushrooms grow, they grow very fast. I've never used these before. When I've done this before, I've bought like wooden pegs that you actually drill into like logs and stick them in. And I've done the log thing before, and they keep producing over and over again. But that's a little bit of a different process. It doesn't work for all mushrooms, because all mushrooms are different. So each one of these has different ways in which they grow and different environments that they like and things that they need. Like I was saying, every mushroom is different. So if you really want to pursue this, understand that whatever mushrooms you choose, it's going to be a little bit of homework on all of them. So you might really try to figure out which ones you think are going to appeal to your taste the most before you attempt to grow them. And then sort of just work your way to the ones you're not as sure about, or maybe start with some of the easier ones. If you are trying to figure out and get a basic idea about mushroom foraging and what you might interest you, there's a fantastic book by Gary Lincroft, who is very well known in the mushroom community. So a lot of these YouTube videos, they can be really helpful, but you need to have an understanding of the basics, and reading that book by Gary Lincroft is probably going to give you enough information that you'll be able to filter some things out. And you're definitely going to have to triple, quadruple check your resources, because I don't know, I've seen people misidentify mushrooms all the time, and even some of the basic simple ones. And you don't want to make a mistake with mushrooms, because the wrong ones will kill you, and then there are other wrong ones that might not kill you but make you wish you were dead. You have to follow some of the basic rules, like mushrooms, all of them should be cooked. Check your resources, because a lot of these people have no idea what they're talking about, and they come across as very confident. You learn some of the basics. This is what they call the foolproof 4, that are the easiest ones to identify, and you just learn the different characteristics of identifying them. And after you have learned those, there's some that are a little easy. There's some other ones that you can learn that might be a little bit less common. It doesn't take many mushrooms to learn to have some success. You don't need to know everything out there. And then the thing is, once you start finding your spots that you look for mushrooms, then you start noticing mushrooms that are they're reoccurring. They keep coming back. And then you start trying to identify those, and are they edible or are they not? Chances are they're not. But that's the place to start, because there's no point in learning all these mushrooms that are supposedly delicious and edible that just you can't find. If you want to learn mushrooms more thoroughly, there's a great online program. You have to spend a little bit more for it. It's through learnyourland.com, and it's produced by Adam Harriton. He also has quite a few YouTube videos that are pretty helpful if you want to get a taste of what his courses might be like. He's very knowledgeable, and I feel like his course is great as a beginning through intermediate level. Really done much with mushrooms, or you've just dabbled with them, it's a great place to start. And there's also local mushroom mycology associations. Like in New Jersey, we have a great one. Most of it's done in North Jersey, which isn't super helpful to me, but they do have forays, which are basically like walking tours where you identify wild animals. They do have some down here, and you know, if I have time, going up there is it's a fun experience to do. Sometimes it's a little bit boring, depending on what you're into, because guess what? Most of the mushroom people out there, a lot of the mushroom people out there, are not totally into the wild edible things. They just geek out on mushrooms, and they might like them for medicinal purpose. They might like them just because they think fungi are cool. And the most common people that usually come out to these things that don't know what they're talking about are people who are interested in eating them. So you might be sort of irritating to them until you learn a little bit more. And a lot of times they don't really want to tell you about what mushrooms are safe to eat or not, because there's some liability issues there. But if you're just trying to understand how mushrooms work, it's a great place to start. So hopefully you found this video sort of informative about the world of mushrooms and what you can do with it and what you can't.